I placed the last crystal goblet on the table and stepped back, making sure everything looked perfect. The salmon glistened under the chandelier, the china from Grandma Alice catching the light. For 12 years, I'd been the one making sure my mother's birthdays felt special. Every detail, every wrinkle smoothed away. "Simone, did you remember the lemon wedges?" Her voice floated in from the living room. Vera Lynn Bennett, my mother, 76 years old, queen of her world, and I was her dutiful subject. "Right here," I answered, arranging them in a fan pattern exactly how she liked. The guests settled in, my cousin Lucas, Mrs. Anderson from next door, and Mom's bridge partner, June Parker. Just 5 of us, intimate the way she preferred. I lifted my glass. "To Mom, may this year bring—" "Actually," she cut me off, smoothing her napkin across her lap, eyes bright with the satisfaction of someone about to deliver a performance. "I'd like to say something." She scanned the table, gaze landing on me, smile soft but eyes like ice. "The best gift my daughter could give me." She paused, her voice lilting upward as though she was announcing a delightful surprise. "Ek is to leave my life." The words struck like a hammer. The room froze. June's fork hovered mid-air. Lucas stared down at his plate. My chest tightened. Breath snagged. The toast stuck in my throat. "Mom?" I whispered, searching for some sign she was joking. "You've done your duty, dear. 12 years is quite enough sacrifice, don't you think? It's time we both moved on." She said it lightly, as if we were discussing the weather, not dismantling my existence in front of everyone. I couldn't move. My hands went still in my lap. I could feel their eyes on me, waiting, watching the ground crumble under my feet. Finally, I pushed my chair back, the napkin sliding to the floor. I walked to the closet, slipped on my jacket, and left the house. Behind me, the birthday cake sat uncut, its candles unlit. Outside, the night air stung my face. I had sacrificed my art career, my friendships, every piece of myself to take care of her. 12 years gone, and now she wanted me erased. But what she didn't know, I was done being erased. And if you've ever had someone you loved betray you so deeply, you'll want to hear what happened next. Because this wasn't the end. It was the start. The air outside was sharp against my skin, but it didn't clear the fog pressing down inside me. I walked without direction, past glowing porch lights and the hum of televisions drifting from open windows. Every house I passed seemed to hold warmth, family, belonging. Mine had just spit me out. By the 3rd morning after her birthday dinner, I hadn't answered a single one of her calls. Her name flashed across my phone again and again, Vera Lynn Bennett, but I let it buzz until the screen went dark. My fingers shook when I finally opened the leather-bound journal I'd bought myself last Christmas. First page, blank and waiting. I wrote, "I've been erased from my own life." The words sat there, black ink on cream paper, daring me to look. When I clicked my bedroom door lock for the first time in 12 years, the sound was soft, but it carried like a shot through my chest. A click of freedom. I sat on the bed, staring at the beige walls she'd repainted years ago when I was away for a weekend retreat. My yellow gone, my posters gone. Even the books I'd collected as an art student shuffled and re-shelved. Every inch of me had been rubbed out, repainted in her image. I stood before the mirror and studied the stranger looking back. Fine lines around my eyes, shoulders curved inward, a woman who had shrunk herself to fit into her mother's mold. My career, my friends, my chance at love, all sacrificed at the altar of duty. At the bank, under buzzing fluorescent lights, I clutched my account statement. "Your joint account with Vera Lynn Bennett?" the teller asked. I nodded. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, then her expression shifted. "There have been several transfers to another account, your mother's, around $7,800, all authorized with your signature." I leaned in. The signature stared back at me, loops and strokes almost like mine, but not mine. My stomach dropped. My knuckles turned white against the counter. "These aren't my signatures," I whispered. And it wasn't just one transfer. This had been happening for years. By the time I walked out with the manila folder of records, my hands trembled so hard I could barely hold on. The streets spun around me. When I entered the kitchen that evening, Vera Lynn and June Parker sat at the table sipping tea. Her brooch glinted in the light, the one that had vanished from my jewelry box last Christmas. "Simone," my mother said brightly, as though nothing had happened at the dinner table days before. "We were just talking about you, how dedicated you are, giving up everything for me." "That's one way to put it," I said flatly, cold glass of milk in my hand, back to them. June shifted, eyes flicking with pity. "How are you managing with the roof repairs? Vera Lynn said they were costly." "Roof repairs?" My heart slammed. There had been no storm, no leak, no repair, another lie, another hole in the floor beneath me. Later, when Mom napped, I opened her desk drawers. Beneath tax returns sat property documents, the house deed altered. My share, once equal, shrunk to almost nothing. I checked my savings online, down from $12,000 to barely $1,200. In the attic, where my brushes and canvases once waited, plastic bins labeled Vera Lynn's Craft Corner filled the space. She hadn't just taken my money, she'd taken my art too. When I confronted her, she waved from her armchair, voice sharp. "I donated those old things. You weren't using them. I needed the space." "Those were professional supplies," I shot back. "This house runs my way or not at all. I thought I made that clear at my birthday." Her voice was steel, cutting me in half. The next morning, June called when Mom was at her bridge club. "Simone, listen to me," she whispered. "She's telling people you're unstable, forgetting things, misplacing items. She showed us a brochure for a facility." My throat closed. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because it isn't right, and because I've seen how she treats you." Her warning played on repeat in my head as I pulled each drawer open, looking for my documents. Birth certificate, gone. Passport, gone. Diplomas stripped from the wall, leaving pale rectangles. My own life dismantled, filed away somewhere I couldn't reach. Even neighbors began to turn. Mrs. Anderson, who used to wave, now stood on her porch, lips pressed tight. Through my open window, I heard her whisper to her husband, "Such a shame when the caretaker needs care." Shame burned hotter than fire. I pulled my curtains closed, shut out the world. Nights stretched long. I began slipping my driver's license into my bra, photographing my room before leaving the house, comparing details when I came back. The brush moved, the drawer ajar. She was still inside my space, erasing me piece by piece. One night, an envelope slid under my door. Not her heavy stationery, but plain paper folded in thirds. The lavender scent gave her away. Elaine Darnell, 3 doors down. Inside, written in careful handwriting, "You are not invisible and you are not wrong." I held those words like a lifeline. But by then, the damage was spreading fast. Cousin Lucas left a voicemail. "Mom says you've been acting strangely. We're worried. Call me back, okay?" Not she's worried, we're worried. My own blood turning. 3 days, that's all it took for her to launch a counterattack. The house grew hostile. The doorbell made my pulse race. The mailman's footsteps sent panic through my chest. My credit card bill showed thousands in charges I never made. Jewelry, restaurants, spa trips. At the credit bureau, they told me 3 new accounts had been opened in my name. "You might want to file a fraud report," the clerk said gently, "though it gets complicated when it's family." Family. The word hollowed out inside me. That night, I opened my journal again. Someone is trying to erase me completely. Identity, finances, even memory. I stared at the page until the letters blurred, realizing I was writing proof for myself. So when they told the world I was losing my mind, I'd have something solid. But the truth? I was losing something, just not my mind. I was losing the version of me willing to disappear for her. And I could feel something new rising, sharp and undeniable. I could feel something new rising, sharp and undeniable. It wasn't rage exactly. It was colder, heavier, like stone settling inside me. For years, I had reacted to her manipulations with guilt. with silence, with shrinking. But not anymore. The first step was proof. I gathered the manila folder from the bank and spread the papers across my bed, the forged signatures glowing under the lamplight like scars. Each loop of ink screamed betrayal. I traced them with my finger until my nails dug into the paper. I needed someone who would see the truth without the filter of family loyalty. That's when I searched for a lawyer. The law office smelled of leather and old books, the blinds casting stripes of afternoon light across the desk. Financial exploitation of family members is unfortunately common, said Thomas Reyes, his tone measured but sympathetic. I laid out the statements, the deed changes, the credit card bills. His dark eyes scanned each page, his pen tapping lightly. "These are forgery patterns," he said, sliding one page against another. "We can freeze the accounts, establish a trail, protect what assets remain. But you must be ready. She won't give up control easily." His words sank in. Ready? I wasn't sure, but I nodded anyway. When I drove home, I saw her silhouette in the living room window. For a moment, fear clenched my throat. Did she already know where I'd been? Could she smell rebellion? I slipped inside quietly, clutching the folder like a weapon. That night, June Parker called again, her voice low, careful. "She's been telling people you're paranoid, said you misplaced jewelry, accused her unfairly. She even showed me a pamphlet for a memory care facility." A chill ran down my spine. My own mother rewriting me into a cautionary tale. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked again. "Because it isn't right, and because I've started to see her clearly." I pressed my forehead to the cool glass of my bedroom window after we hung up. Outside, the street lamp buzzed. My reflection stared back, drawn, tired, but no longer pliant. The next morning, I moved quietly, like a ghost in my own house. She hummed in the kitchen, slicing fruit, June's laughter drifting through the phone pressed to her ear. I slipped into her study again, photographing every document I found. Tax returns, insurance papers, a small notebook filled with tidy handwriting, lists of expenses I didn't recognize. I snapped each page with trembling hands. When she noticed me that afternoon, her eyes narrowed. "You've been strange lately, forgetful, distracted. Should I be worried?" I forced a smile. "No, Mom, nothing to worry about." Inside, my heart pounded. She was planting seeds. Soon, everyone would look at me and wonder if I was unraveling. The evidence grew. At the credit bureau, the clerk pulled up my file, pity softening her professional mask. 3 accounts opened in your name in 8 months, all carrying balances. The paper slid across the desk, weighty in my hands. Fraud reports, witness statements, deadlines. My pulse thudded as I signed, hand shaking slightly, this time with my real signature. Back home, I hid the documents beneath the floorboard under my bed, the one place I prayed she wouldn't check. Every creak of the house made me tense, imagining her footsteps overhead, her hands rifling through my drawers, her voice rehearsing another lie. Elaine, the neighbor who had slipped me the lavender-scented note, caught me outside one morning. She pressed a casserole into my hands, eyes steady. "Don't let her convince you you're invisible. I see you." Her words cracked something in me. I had been carrying silence for so long it felt unnatural to be believed. I blinked back tears, nodding. The phone rang later. Cousin Lucas again. "Mom says you're unstable. She's worried. We all are." "We all are." The phrase burned. I pressed the phone face down on the table, pulse hammering. Already her poison was spreading through the family tree. I began writing everything down. Each odd look from the neighbors, each misplaced object, each lie she spun. I documented, cataloged, armed myself. My journal became a shield, the one place her voice couldn't overwrite mine. At night, I practiced what I would say if I confronted her. Words whispered into the dark, trembling at first, then steadier. "No one has the right to erase me, not even you." The rehearsals gave me courage, but fear was still there, curling in the corners of my chest. When I searched for my passport and found the drawer empty, terror pressed down like a weight. Birth certificate gone. Diplomas removed from the wall. She wasn't just controlling me, she was dismantling my identity piece by piece. Some nights I heard her on the phone, voice dripping with false sorrow. Yes, she's been so forgetful, so erratic. I may have to look into care options. My fists clenched under the covers, each word another nail hammered into the coffin she was building for me. But I wasn't lying down in it. Slowly, carefully, I began reclaiming space. I rearranged the books in my room, not the way she liked, but the way I did. I kept my journals stacked openly on the nightstand, not hidden. I bought a cheap set of pencils, sketching late into the night small, shaky lines that felt like oxygen. The house still felt hostile, but within its walls, I carved small pockets of freedom. The turning point came one Saturday morning. I overheard her in the kitchen speaking to Lucas on the phone. She refuses to see reason, she said, voice quivering with practiced fragility. We'll talk sense into her, Lucas promised. I stood in the hallway, blood roaring in my ears. For years I had shrunk, folded myself into corners. But in that moment I realized, if I didn't step forward, I would vanish completely. When I entered the kitchen, her voice faltered mid-sentence. Their eyes turned to me. Lucas's face a mix of pity and exasperation. Simone, we need to discuss your behavior, he began. My behavior? My voice was low, steady, but it carried. The erratic spending, the paranoia, the accusations? He ticked them off on his fingers. After everything she'd done, after 12 years of sacrifice, they still believed her. But something shifted inside me, tectonic and irreversible. My spine straightened, my voice steadied. No one has the right to demand my entire life in return for being my parent, I said, looking directly at her. Not even you. Lucas blinked, caught off guard. You've always been dramatic, Vera Lynn cut in smoothly, reaching for June's hand. You get that from your father's side. Dramatic? I let out a short laugh, bitter but free. Is it dramatic to want autonomy? To ask why my signature shows up on documents I never signed? The room went silent. And then the doorbell rang. I froze, heart pounding. On the other side of that door could be salvation, or another trap. The chime still echoed in the air when I pushed back my chair. My palms were damp, my pulse uneven. I crossed the kitchen floor, every step heavy with dread. Through the frosted glass, I saw a dark outline, tall, upright, a briefcase under one arm. When I opened the door, Tomas Reyes stood there, pressed suit, leather portfolio tucked neatly in his grip. His calm eyes met mine. Relief washed over me so sharply it felt almost like pain. Miss Bennett, he said with a professional nod, I have those documents you requested. Behind him stood Elaine, silver hair catching the sunlight, hands folded over a slim envelope. Her jaw was set firm, her expression steady. I thought you might want a witness, she said. I stepped aside. Come in. The kitchen, moments ago a battlefield tilted against me, shifted in an instant. Now it was 3 against 3. Tomas spread the documents across the table, each page weighted with the gravity of truth. These transfers occurred without my client's knowledge, he explained. Signatures have been professionally analyzed and confirmed as forgeries. I stood tall beside him, my voice steady as I added, and I am freezing the joint accounts today, initiating legal separation of property. Vera Lynn's face blanched, her mask slipping for just a heartbeat. You can't do this. I'm your mother. Being my mother doesn't entitle you to my identity, I said. Elaine stepped forward, voice calm but unyielding. I've heard her admit to signing Simone's name more than once, said it was easier that way. I'll give a statement. The silence that followed felt seismic. Lucas's face tightened, eyes darting between us. June studied her teacup like it contained answers. But the moment didn't last, because hours later, after Tomas and Elaine left, I returned from a walk to find the front door ajar. My chest seized. Inside, Vera Lynn knelt in the living room, my suitcase flung open on the floor, her hands clutching my clothes. What are you doing? My voice trembled despite myself. She didn't look up. "Packing your things. If you want independence so badly, you can have it." I stood frozen, watching her fold my shirts with mechanical precision. It should have terrified me. For years, her actions had held the power to unravel me completely. But now, her movements looked desperate, her last grasp at control. And instead of fear, I felt something new, a strange, almost dangerous freedom. 2 days later, a locksmith pressed a new key into my palm. "All done, ma'am. 3 exterior doors, 2 interior. Nobody's getting in without your say-so now." The metal bit into my skin when I closed my fingers around it. For the first time in 12 years, the house obeyed me. That afternoon, I watched through the curtains as she jabbed her old key into the lock, twisting harder with each attempt. Her knuckles whitened, her mouth pulled thin. When her eyes finally lifted and found mine at the window, shock spread across her face. I opened the door just a crack. "Your things are in the guest room. We need to talk about the forged signatures at the bank." "This is ridiculous," she spat, her voice pitched high enough for the neighbors to hear. "My own daughter locks me out of my home." "My home," I corrected evenly. "The deed shows I've owned it since Grandma Alice passed, the deed you tried to alter. My home." Her tears came then, big performative drops, her voice trembling like fine glass. "I'm calling Lucas. The family needs to know what you're doing." "Go ahead." I shut the door softly. But soft didn't mean safe. That night, the phone rang. June's voice on the other end sounded careful. "Simone, your mother called an emergency family meeting at my house tomorrow. She's telling everyone you've had some kind of breakdown." My stomach twisted. I'd expected this, but June's voice shifted, lower. "I could record it. Let you hear what she's saying behind your back." I swallowed hard. "Why would you do that?" "Because she's lying. She told me you stole money from her accounts, but I was there when she bragged about using your credit for that cruise last year. Said you'd never notice." My hand shook against the wall. "She told you that?" "And more. I stayed quiet too long. That was wrong." The next morning, Lucas called, his voice subdued. "I just left June's. Mom's saying some pretty extreme things about you." "Let me guess," I said flatly. "I'm unstable, ungrateful, possibly stealing?" Silence. "Lucas, I have proof. Documents, actual evidence, not just accusations." Another silence, heavier, then, "I'd like to see it." The conversation left me raw, hope and despair tangled tight. Later that evening, Elaine brought over a casserole and helped me rearrange the living room. Together, we carried Vera Lynn's heavy wingback chair to the basement and brought my reading chair down from the attic. The air felt lighter already. "How are you sleeping?" Elaine asked, straightening a lamp. "Better," I admitted. "First time in weeks I didn't wake up at 3 a.m. "Good, that's a start." But my mother wasn't finished. The next morning, she called with a trembling voice. "Simone, I'm terribly ill. The doctor says it's my heart. I need you to take me in again. After everything we've been through, you can't turn me away now." I closed my eyes, recognizing the manipulation dressed up as weakness. "I'll have Lucas drive you to the ER. If the doctor confirms it's serious, we'll discuss next steps." Her silence told me everything. The old tactics no longer worked. Still, her games left me rattled. For every step I took forward, she dragged me 2 back. Even with Tomas's calm reassurances, even with Elaine's casserole and June's whispered warnings, the battle felt endless. The house no longer felt like mine. Each creak of the stairs sent fear skittering across my skin. Each phone call brought a fresh accusation. And the worst part? The family was divided. Whispers reached me from every direction. Caretaker needs care. Poor Vera Lynn, betrayed by her own daughter. One evening, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. My shoulders slumped, eyes shadowed, jaw tight. Was I becoming what she said I was? Erratic, paranoid, unstable. For the first time in weeks, doubt broke through the stone inside me. What if she was right? What if no matter how much evidence I gathered, no one would ever believe me over her? The thought hollowed me. And then, just when I needed to feel strong, she showed up again. 2 days later, cane in hand, face drawn with exaggerated pain, she stood on my doorstep at 8 in the morning. "Simone," she wheezed, "the doctor says my heart isn't good. I need to come in." Lucas arrived minutes later, his eyes darting between us, uncertain. She collapsed into the armchair, my armchair now, pressing a hand to her chest. "Tell her how serious this is, Lucas." I moved to the bookshelf, pulled out the manila folder, and slid notarized statements onto the table. "These are bank records, forged signatures, credit accounts in my name. And this," I held up her medical file, "says you're in perfect health." Lucas stared at the papers, then at her. The crack in his certainty widened. But she rallied, tears spilling, voice quivering. "After everything I've done for you, Simone, no one will ever love you like I do." The words slammed into me, familiar as a bruise pressed too often. For 12 years, they had bound me to her will. But this time, they didn't land. This time, I heard the truth beneath them. That love had always been a weapon. I wanted to scream, to tear every lie from the walls of this house. But before I could speak, before I could anchor myself fully in that moment, the phone rang, shrill, demanding. Lucas looked from me to her, torn. My mother leaned back, smug even through her tears. And in my gut, dread flared. Because I knew this wasn't over. This was only the beginning of her real war. This was only the beginning of her real war. The ringing phone cut through the air like a blade. I froze, every nerve bracing for impact. Lucas glanced at me, then at my mother, before finally reaching for the receiver. "Hello?" His voice carried hesitation. I couldn't hear the words on the other end, but I could read the shift in his face. Concern, shock, then that familiar shadow of doubt. He hung up slowly, eyes narrowing on me. "That was Aunt Margaret. She says Mom told her you've been taking money, Simone, that you drained her accounts and are trying to force her out of the house." My throat tightened, rage and disbelief flooding me. "You just saw the documents," I snapped, jabbing a finger at the manila folder still open on the table. "Bank statements, forged signatures, her medical file. How can you still—" Vera Lynn leaned back in her chair, tears glistening perfectly. "You see how she yells? Unstable, dramatic. I told you, Lucas." Her performance was flawless, the timing brutal. I felt the weight of 12 years pressing down again, threatening to smother me. But then I remembered Tomas's calm voice. "You have enough. It's provable. Don't let her rewrite the story." I inhaled sharply, steadying myself. "You want to talk unstable?" I said, my voice low, deliberate. "Let's talk about the accounts opened in my name, the charges I never made, the roof repairs that never happened. Let's talk about my missing passport." Her face tightened, the mask slipping. For once, her eyes betrayed a flicker of fear. Lucas turned to her, confusion etched deep. "Mom, is that true? Did you really sign her name?" "I did what I had to do," she snapped, mask gone, voice rising. "She would have left me, just like everyone else. I needed her here." The room went still. My breath caught. She had just confessed. Lucas slumped back, the realization dawning across his face like a slow, cruel sunrise. 12 years, he muttered. "You lied for 12 years. Her eyes widened, realizing her mistake. "No, But it was too late. I pulled out my phone, hit record, and placed it on the table between us. "Say it again, Mom, for the record." Her lips pressed thin. She said nothing. The silence was damning. The next 48 hours were a blur of movement. Tomas filed for separation of accounts, froze assets, prepared fraud reports. Elaine accompanied me to the courthouse to notarize affidavits. June called again, voice shaking with guilt. "She's telling the whole family you're dangerous, but I've started recording her. I want you to hear." When I pressed play later that night, my mother's voice hissed from the speaker. "She's unstable, erratic. She's spending wildly. I fear for my safety." Then June's voice. "But you said you used her credit card for the cruise. That doesn't sound unstable on her part." A pause. My mother's laugh, cold and sharp. She'll never prove it. I nearly dropped the phone, my chest seizing. Proof, not just documents, but her voice. The war had entered a new stage. She struck back harder. By the end of the week, neighbors avoided me, eyes flicking with pity or suspicion. A notice arrived in the mail, an anonymous report filed with Adult Protective Services, claiming I was neglecting Vera Lynn. I sat at the kitchen table clutching the paper, hands trembling. If they believed her, I could lose everything. But Tomas was ready. We'll respond with documentation, bank records, the medical file, and June's recordings. I nodded, clinging to his certainty like a lifeline. That night, exhaustion pressed heavy on me, but I couldn't sleep. I paced the living room, staring at the empty spaces on the wall where my diplomas had once hung, spaces she had created. And then I realized spaces could be filled again. I retrieved my old sketchbook, flipping to the unfinished self-portrait. A faceless woman stared back. I pressed my pencil to the page, hand shaking, and began to draw. Line by line, I reclaimed the features I'd once abandoned. My jaw, my eyes, my mouth. When dawn broke, I saw myself staring back, whole, recognizable. The confrontation came faster than I expected. Saturday afternoon, I heard voices in the kitchen again. Lucas, June, and hers, sweet, trembling, rehearsed. She refuses to see reason, she said. We must intervene. I stepped into the doorway, clutching the folder to my chest. Their heads swiveled toward me, the air charged like a storm. My behavior, I said, my tone steady. That's what you want to discuss? The spending, the paranoia, the accusations? Lucas opened his mouth, but I cut him off. Here's the truth. One by one, I laid the documents on the table. Bank records, forged signatures, the medical file, the credit card statements. Then I pressed play on June's recordings. My mother's voice filled the room, damning herself in her own words. Lucas's face drained of color. June stared at her lap. Vera Lynn's eyes darted, searching for an exit, for a new lie. She twisted this. I only did what I had to. No, I said sharply. You did what you wanted, and you don't get to use me anymore. For the first time, my voice didn't shake. She rose suddenly, lunging for the folder, but Elaine appeared in the doorway, steady as ever. Enough, Vera Lynn. Her voice was quiet, but it carried like thunder. The room fractured. Lucas pushed the folder back toward me. June whispered, I'm so sorry. And my mother's face contorted, fury and fear colliding. You'll regret this, Simone, she spat, her voice raw. Family will never forgive you. You'll end up alone. Her words echoed in the silence that followed, but they no longer pierced. Because for the first time, I wasn't the one shrinking. I was standing. Later that night, exhaustion hit like a tidal wave. I collapsed onto my bed, staring at the ceiling. Relief and dread warred inside me. Yes, I had proof. Yes, Lucas and June had seen it. But the battle wasn't done. The phone buzzed again. A text from Tomas. Documents filed. Next step, formal complaint. Be ready. Be ready. I set the phone aside, staring at my reflection in the darkened window. My shoulders squared, my spine straight. For 12 years, I had lived small, erased, pliant. Now I was louder than her lies. But I knew, when cornered, she would strike again. And I had to be ready when she did. The next morning, the doorbell rang. My heart thudded. Through the curtain, I saw Lucas. His face was pale, jaw tight. When I opened the door, he stepped inside, eyes flicking nervously toward the kitchen. She's furious, he said quietly. She's telling Margaret you've manipulated me, that you forged the documents yourself. She wants the whole family to cut you off. I felt the familiar twist in my gut, that reflexive panic. But then I inhaled slowly, grounding myself. Did you believe her? He hesitated, then shook his head. Not anymore. Relief surged so sharp I almost staggered, but it was fleeting. Because just as Lucas sat at the table, my phone buzzed again. A voicemail alert. I pressed play. Simone, my mother's voice said, low and venomous. You think you've won? This isn't finished. You'll see. Everyone will see. The message ended. I stared at the phone, my chest tightening. She wasn't retreating, she was regrouping. And the real fight, the one that would decide whether I was free or erased for good, was still ahead. The real fight was still ahead. But this time, I wasn't afraid. Tomas filed the complaint formally the following week. Bank records, forged slips, the audio recordings June handed over, all packaged neatly into a case that no one could ignore. The weight of proof was finally heavier than my mother's performance. When the investigator from Adult Protective Services arrived, clipboard in hand, I braced myself for another round of suspicion. But instead of doubt, her eyes softened as she flipped through the stack of notarized pages Tomas had prepared. "Miss Bennett, you've been the victim here," she said gently. "We'll make sure this gets documented properly." Victim. The word landed oddly. For 12 years, I had felt like a ghost, half erased, half alive. Hearing it spoken aloud didn't sting the way I thought it would. It felt like a confirmation, but not a definition. I wasn't just a victim anymore. Lucas came by that afternoon. He sat at the kitchen table where so many battles had unfolded. He didn't speak right away, just studied the papers spread out between us. Finally, he exhaled. "I should have seen it sooner. I should have believed you." "You saw what she wanted you to see," I said, not unkindly. "We all did." His eyes filled with regret. "Family's divided now. Some think you betrayed her. Others are starting to ask questions." I shrugged. "Maybe the truth doesn't fix everything, but it's still the truth." He nodded slowly. "I'll stand with you this time. It wasn't everything, but it was something." The weeks that followed felt like breathing fresh air after years in a sealed room. Elaine brought over cuttings from her garden. June stopped by with recordings and apologies, slowly transforming from accomplice to ally. Tomas walked me through the paperwork step by step, his steady tone pulling me back each time panic threatened to rise. And my mother? She moved in with Cousin Margaret in Arizona. Rumors swirled. She told anyone who would listen that I was cruel, unstable, ungrateful. But for once, I didn't feel the need to correct every lie. Because I knew who I was, and for the first time in years, that was enough. One morning, I opened the attic and pulled down my art supplies. What hadn't been stolen or discarded still carried the faint smell of turpentine and dust. I spread a canvas on the easel by the window I had been forbidden to open for 12 years. Sunlight streamed across the blank surface. My hand trembled as I lifted the brush, but it wasn't fear this time. It was anticipation. Stroke by stroke, color bloomed where emptiness had reigned. It wasn't just art. It was proof that I still existed, that I had always existed, even when she tried to erase me. A year later, the house no longer felt haunted. The beige walls she insisted on had given way to warm terracotta, her stiff furniture replaced by my softer choices, books piled on the coffee table, my paintings brightening the walls. I hosted my own gathering that spring. Elaine brought lavender from her garden. Tomas arrived with a bottle of wine. Even June came, tentative at first, until I welcomed her with a smile that surprised us both. Lucas raised his glass across the table. "To Simone," he said quietly, "to reclaiming what's hers." The toast didn't freeze me this time. It warmed. We ate. We laughed. We shared stories not centered on her. For once, the table belonged to me. Later that night, I sat on the back porch, journal open on my lap. The air smelled of lavender and mint, seedlings I had planted months earlier now thriving in the soil. I wrote slowly, each word deliberate. Maybe I wasn't meant to be seen by her. Maybe I was meant to see myself. The page stayed open under my hand, ink drying in the cool night breeze. Freedom didn't come from her leaving. It came from me staying in my own skin, my own truth, my own home. Would the family ever fully forgive me? Probably not. Would she ever stop spinning her stories? Definitely not. But I no longer lived inside her narrative. I had written my own. And if you've ever found yourself buried under someone else's version of you, Know this: you can reclaim yourself, even if it takes 12 years, even if it costs you family, even if it feels impossible. Because the only story that matters in the end is the one you tell yourself. And mine? It's just beginning. If this story touched you, if you've ever struggled to break free from control, from silence, from being erased, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Let someone else know they aren't alone. Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones fought quietly at the kitchen table, but they're also the ones that set us free.